Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us tmosso@the1916company.com. It is in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out directly. Email tmosso@the1916company.com for pricing details. Today we're discussing a model that launched in 2002. It was only made through about 2007 or 2008. This is a watch that I consider to be one of the best buys in high horology. For people looking to get into high horology, or even those who just want to own one fine watch, I find myself recommending the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Compressor Memovox more times than not. So this watch, which pays homage to the Polaris 68, nevertheless isn't a retro watch. In the early 2000s, with the launch of the compressor crown technology, Jaeger-LeCoultre was looking to create a new legacy in the sports watch space, and this watch was the first of the Master Compressor series. So, with JLC's signature Memovox alarm and diving capability, this is a 41.5 millimeter diameter stainless steel watch that is 15.5 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 49.8 millimeters. If we measure end link to end link, this one does have the optional bracelet. Then the total span across the wrist is 54.2 millimeters and has a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. This bracelet is really something, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but fit is fundamental, so fit comes first. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, the watch has a lot of presence. I'd say if you've worn the latest 41 millimeter Rolex Submariner, you can wear this. I'd recommend it for a wrist of 15 centimeters circumference or larger. And you can see it really is a good fit on my wrist of 16 centimeters. Because it has this generally cupped case back, it actually sinks into the wrist. So once it's strapped down and sized, it sits lower than you'd expect, meaning it is compatible with dress cuffs and tight shirt sleeves. There's your over the top, there's your down the barrel, cuff shot one more time. Okay, most of these were sold on straps, and that's often a style for dive watches, but Jaeger-LeCoultre's bracelet is one of the best available. Now, this bracelet design dates back to the late 1990s, and it was pretty much created perfect from the outset. At center, you can see we have these intermediates that feature a combination of polished bevels and satin tops. We have polished flanks. There's a conforming end link that closes the gap to the case and matches both the slope of the lugs and the arc of the case for a more integrated look. The bracelet tapers down towards the clasp. You can see what at first glance looks like it might be a fairly cheap and rudimentary pin and sleeve arrangement, but looks deceive. These are actually spring bars. Every single one of them a spring bar, allowing for the entire bracelet to be dismantled using only strap tools. As a result, it is super easy to size. Now, once you get down to the clasp, you can see it's double deployant, but it has a little spring block at center that allows it to close and remain closed until you press all four triggers to open it up, so it's very secure. Moreover, there is a Easy Link style micro adjustment, good for about 2.5 millimeters of adjustable length in or out on each side of this clasp. And you could see that JLC knows how to build a bracelet, as on the underside, there are plenty of gaps to avoid pinching skin, pulling hair, or trapping wrist heat. And the feeling, it's supple without being flimsy. Deeply impressive. Taking a look at the case, you can see it's a case that's well traveled. At JLC during the late 90s and through the late 2000s and early 2010s, this case was ubiquitous on everything from dress watches to sports watches in many different sizes. Now you can see this is a sports watch that's been used, so there are some small marks present, but condition overall is excellent. The compressor crowns were a unique concept, the idea being that whereas it can be very difficult to grip a screw down crown when your hands are wet, sweaty, or gloved, it's very easy to grip these extended winglets. Also, they're color-coded. Red, you're dead, and white, you're tight. And with just a half turn, you can unlock the crown, or you can relock and achieve 100-meter water resistance. Now, because this is a diver, It does have an internal rotating bezel, just like the old Polaris, and you can see that some of the choices made, such as the indices and the fonts, are a nod to the Polaris 68, but it's not a retro watch. It's just a nod. It's not wholesale plagiarism. So this is a bidirectional bezel. You can line it up with the minute hand, and now you have an internal timing reference, and unlike most diving bezels, this one's fully calibrated, so provided you have the light, you can easily read minute by minute. Not universal on dive watches. Let's do a quick lume shot so you can see how much this dial is actually lumed. You'll note that the scale for the alarm has a lumed index, but not a lumed disc, which I find funny. However, it does have a lumed seconds hand, which I consider essential on a diver, because you really need to know, if you're using this as a backup dive timer, whether it is working. You can also see that there's no luminescent index on the dive bezel. So this one, being a 100-meter diver, is more suited to diving near the surface where ambient light is still going to be available. Moving inboard, you can see the dial's black lacquer. We have what I would describe as hybrid baton and Dauphine and Alpha style hands. It has little bits of all of them, and again, this is a Polaris nod. We have a Memovox scale. Now, in 1950, the first Memovox reference, the first wrist alarm, I want to say it was the reference 3150, came to market, and I would also judge, as a long-term collector and connoisseur of JLC, that if you're going to get an iconic JLC, you're going to buy a Reverso or you're going to buy a Memovox wrist alarm. So the way this works is you've got a crown up at roughly, we'll call that 205, and this crown can be used for winding the alarm. It's also used for setting the alarm. It's quite loud. It will wake you up. It has a free hanging gong. And once you get talented with it, you can set it to about a 10-minute resolution. So that's what the alarm sounds like. And I find that alarms are the most useful complication, whether reminding you that it's time to board a flight and get back to the gate, return to a meeting, return to the opera or a movie after an intermission, or to call a friend at a certain time. Maybe it's simply to remind you to take the chicken out of the oven. Alarms can be used for anything and everything, and when paired with a diving bezel and a high degree of water resistance and a versatile case size, you've really got the perfect watch. Now, there are two different versions of this dial, and by the way, there are different versions of this watch. Gold is available, platinum's available, straps as well. But one version, the earlier version, features Jaeger-LeCoultre Memovox Automatique. Later on, it would say JL logo, so it would be JL and then Memovox. So JL, Jaeger-LeCoultre, and Memovox without the Automatique. And that change probably happened sometime around 2003, 2004. So this is the earlier version of the dial. Both are correct. Both are real JLC watches. So if you see one that's different, don't worry. Taking a look at the reverse side, you have a rose gold medallion that features the symbol of the International Geophysic Year of 1958. That International Geophysical Year inspired the original Jaeger-LeCoultre Geophysic Engineer's Watch. Today, the symbol is used to represent the Master 1000 Hours Control, and back when this watch came out, it was still something that was highly feted and celebrated, which is why we have a full rose gold inlay. So, launched in 1992, it was one of the first factory in-house standards that went beyond the bare requirements of the COSC. So yes, timing was still tested, but it also included water resistance, durability, winding efficiency, and power reserve, and not over 2 weeks like the COSC, roughly 2 weeks with the COSC, but over 1,000 hours or more than 41 days. So that's what that's all about. Inside, we have Jaeger-LeCoultre manufacturer. Did you expect anything else? But Jaeger-LeCoultre manufacturer, caliber 918. It's a Memovox automatic with a 45-hour power reserve, a 4 Hz beat rate, a stop seconds function, an alarm, 27 pivot joules, Master 1000 Hours certification, and 6 position adjustment. Now, if you want to know how you actually set the date, it's a little bit different on this watch because it doesn't have a modern quick set system. So you actually just ratchet it like this, cycling between 12 midnight and 10 p.m. And that's how you advance quickly using this, there's the alarm again, using this system. And this watch is now considered highly collectible and well regarded by the community. Perfectly sized, imaginatively styled by a star designer, Miss Maitre is quite regarded in the industry these days, and the Master Compressor series considered to be her magnum opus as a group. And this is probably the iconic of the Master Compressor series, the Memovox. So if you want to get into hierology or just want the perfect one-watch collection, this is the introduction to the truly high-end, to watches that include a large amount of hand craftsmanship from brands that have been around and will be around. Reach out to Team Mosso with the 1916 company for purchase and pricing details.